Well, good morning, damn fam. It is Monday, July 27th, 2026, and on today's Daily Beaver Morning Show, we are going to be talking by elections. Three of the six that we are expecting at the federal level have been announced. They've been called. We have a date. I believe it is August 3rd. And we will take a look at whether or not there may be some strategic shenanigans involved here. As well, there are a couple of dueling opinion pieces and some reaction from some key conservative players that kind of give someone the impression that, well, maybe they're finally coming for Poilièvre and not just from one flank. So grab your favorite bevy because this one might be just juicy. And here we go.
Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6 and episode number. I actually don't remember off the top of my head. I've been doing a little bit of work here behind the scenes as getting the show ready and forgot the show number. So I am going to say um, 953 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian, and of course, always be verific. Today, recording day is Monday, July 27th, 2026, and it is a lovely day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, A. And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corbin Moon Publishing, and Canadian Tarot. No, PsychicTarot.ca. How is your mental health doing today, kits and cups? I am doing rather well, I have to say. I had a lovely weekend. My sweetie and I and two friends, Chad and Tyler, we went camping for the weekend and not wild country camping. This one, glamping, which where there was a sign that said glamping. It's like camping, but with electricity, wine, and much less dirt. Uh, so yes, we were at a rainbow campground. So we went and spent a weekend among our own kind. Bum, 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 bum. And it was a lovely time. It was a campground we had never been to before. So we got to meet some new people, play lots of volleyball, um, have a nice big bonfire, communal watching of an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race. That was interesting. Uh, never watched never watched an episode with a whole crowd with a gaggle of gay men. That's what they call us when we travel in groups. A gaggle, uh, a gaggle of gays and a leap of lesbians. Sorry, a lick of lesbians. Sorry. They're they're gonna remove my my honorary status there for having gotten that wrong. Um, so yes, just a wonderful time. So um, I've always enjoyed camping. So and it's normally it's just my Beaver sweetie and I, but the opportunity to go with friends and spend some time. There was a bit of it. Oh yeah, there was a dance party as well on Saturday night, which was also a lot of fun. So, we just had a really good time and, spent a little bit of time there is a river there, but it's, lets bugs mosquito away. Yeah, turns out, um, um, it turns out that I'm particularly delicious. Let's just put it that way. I came back way more lumpy. Uh, I lost 3 pounds over the course of the weekend. That's probably because the mosquitoes took all those chunks out of me. So, uh, but by there's also a pool there. So by the pool, that was a little more civil when it comes to being devoured. Let's put it that way. So yeah, just a wonderful time, and we got back yesterday and had a good evening in to unwind. And we are here today with you. So disconnected a little bit again for the weekend, which is good. It does the mental health a lot of good. I have to tell you that, but still kept abreast of a couple of things while I was out there. And I've got an interesting show for you today, kits and cubs. Anyway, I hope you guys had almost. I hope not almost. I'm hoping that you've had at least as much fun on the weekend as I did because that was it was just it was a weekend that was good for the soul. Let's put it that way. Good for the soul. Um, all right. I see there is some news here. Uh, Uncovered most Canadians want Ottawa to hit back at Donald Trump's tariffs as confidence in PM Mark Carney slips. New poll shows. Indeed, lots of lots of intention to want to hit back. And there are two public opinion surveys that say that. There's one by Abacus and one by Angus Reid. And hopefully we'll have a chance to get to that. If not today, I'll be working it in to other episodes this week where we'll probably be talking more about trade and all that kind of stuff. Um, let's see, what else do we have here from Could Uncover. Ford short haul across Ontario. Ford flew short haul across southern Ontario as jet purchase was finalized. Okay, so this that the story that keeps on giving there. Um, yes, I saw this. Canadian bans on U.S. alcohol clearly working and frustrating for Trump, former advisor says. And that's how you know it's working, so you keep on doing it. Yes, some symbolism here. Giant Canadian flag to fly outside Ottawa City Hall in response to U.S. tariff threat. So the city's participating in ways that they can. And of course, I saw this morning. As soon as I came into the studio, the first thing that was staring at me in the chat was Kit Linda with, "Are we taking bets on whether the bridge actually opens today?" Oh my god. I started laughing so hard, Kit Linda. I laughed so hard. It's like, oh. Oh, man. According to Kit Elaine, who I believe is from the area. Good morning. Traffic is scheduled to start going over the bridge at noon. We will see about that. I also stumbled upon a really interesting story with regard to that. Hopefully, we'll have time for that today. And it was in the National Post, of all places. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. Let's see what else we have here in the news. Oh, Kit Linda watching the Commonwealth Games. Oh, this guy just fell on the first tumbling run on his floor exercise, and the other competitors came over to give him a pat on the back. He was visibly upset. Yeah, I can bet there. Having um, um, a really good start, particularly for Canada's gymnastics team at the Commonwealth Games. The men's team picking up the gold medal in the all around, doing a little early Canadians who make us proud, and Ellie Black winning the all around in the women's division, being, I believe, the first person, woman or man, to be a double gold medalist, I think back to back. I'm not sure if it's just double gold medalists at all or gold to back at the Commonwealth Games. Again, a great performance there, and much more. Right, there were some individual medals by Felix Dolce and other people on the team, and another member of the Canadian team picked up a bronze in the all around for the women. So just a great performance by the gymnastics team so far here at the Commonwealth Games. Um, let's see what we have here. July 23rd becomes the busiest day for commercial aviation ever recorded by Flight Radar 24 with 153,359 flights worldwide. Well, there you go. Huh. Quebec town offering $100 to swap gas-powered tools for electric. Yeah, my Beaver sweetie says that one of the worst things out there is those gas-powered leaf blowers. He would eliminate them from the face of the planet if he could. Just make them electric. Kitla, rainbow campers in the wild. Yes, do feed the bears. All right. Yes. See them in their natural environment. All right, kids and cubs, let's get to it. There have been some developments, as you know, kids and cubs. We have been waiting for the call for 6 federal by elections, potential ones. And I was wrong. I did not expect any of them to come over the course of the summer. I figured for sure it would be after back to school. And if it was back to school, if it was at that time back to school, which this is not, none of the ones in Quebec would be called because there's a Quebec provincial election coming. And usually, as a courtesy, we try not to mix those two things unless, there's that actual an issue of a deadline that comes into play because by-elections need to be called within 6 months of the seats becoming vacant. Now, of the 6 federal by-elections that we are expecting, it's very important to note that 2 of them, the seats are not actually vacated yet. They haven't been vacated yet. Intention to resign has been noted, but in both of those cases, the case uh, for the seat vacated by Stephen Guilbeault in Laurier-Sainte-Marie in Quebec, and the seat being vacated by Conservative MP Cathay Wagenthal, those are going to take effect only on August 28th and 31st, 2026, respectively. So those can't be called now. So that's a first thing when we're looking at the choice. Why just 3? Why these 3? Why not, why not all 6? 2 of them can't be called now because the seats are not vacated. Those MPs have decided that they are going to represent their constituents throughout the summer and then step aside. Um, but that leaves 4, and only 3 of the 4 were selected. Hmm. Now that's curious. Of those, well, let's look at the four that were available. The first was North Vancouver Capilano, British Columbia. That was the seat that was held by Jonathan Wilkinson, who was a minister in the Trudeau government, but was not made a minister in the Carney government. A person with a lot of experience, particularly in green industry. Let's put it that way. He was named Canada's ambassador to the European Union, replacing Stéphane Dion. And uh, I believe that seat was vacated on June 19th of this year. So Liberal held seat and now vacated. The other one, Beaches East York, that was vacated by Nate Erskine Smith on July 7th when he was running for the nomination for Scarborough Southwest in Ontario because he was thinking of running for the Ontario Liberal leadership. That nomination race did not work out for him. It seems that he has decided instead to perhaps pursue an opportunity back in municipal politics, and therefore will not be part of the Ontario Liberal leadership race. But this seat has indeed been vacated, and that was vacated on July 7th. Then we have Saint-Hyacinthe Baguette Acton, that was vacated by Simon-Pierre Savard of the Bloc Québécois. He vacated the seat in order to become a candidate for the Parti Québécois in the upcoming provincial Quebec election that will take place in October. And he vacated this one on June 19th, 2026. So June 19th, there were two of them, Jonathan Wilkinson and Simon-Pierre Savard-Tremblay. July 7th, uh, there was Nate Erskine Smith, even though he had announced his intention way long before. This was a long goodbye. On July 7th, the seat officially became vacated. Um, and then the fourth one is the one that recently became available in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, Quebec, which was vacated by Conservative MP Richard Martel when he was presented by Mark Carney with an opportunity to go to the Senate. And I guess things were just so ducky and rosy and fun in his party that he jumped at the opportunity. There's even some questions about whether or not he actually let the leader of the party know that he was going. Because the best I can see from newspaper articles and reporting is that he attempted to inform the leader. Not much reporting on whether or not the attempts were successful. Just saying, it may have come. There's a possibility out there that it may have come as a surprise. But yes, he jumped to the Senate, as we reported on the show as well. There is a history that it seems that he was indeed discontent, but uh, not primed to be a candidate who would cross party lines and join the other party. But I guess and there's many reasons for that. Because I'm sorry, I just listen. I'm not happy here, but I am a conservative. I could just never be a member of the Liberal Party. To you know, right? Who knows? Whatever reasons, personal reasons that you can have, but he just didn't see himself as a potential for crossing over to the Liberals. So I think Mark Carney just looked at him and said, "Well, hey, would you take a Senate seat then?" And it's like, "Oh my God, would I?" Right? But as we reported on the show, also there was a little bit of strategy potentially at play because when you looked at polling from aggregate polling as reported by 338 Canada. Um, when you looked at that particular electoral district, that riding, um, it was very, very close. Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. It's riding that in 2025 went 31.2% for the bloc, 31.1%, one tenth of a percent for the Liberals and 34.1% for the Conservatives. And latest projection shows that if an election were held today, it would be the Bloc Québécois at 32%, the Liberals at 31%, CPC at 30%. When we reported on this a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, when the seat became when the seat became vacant, the Liberals were leading in this race. Now they're in second place by one, but I mean, with the margin of error, and the parties being at 30, 31, 32, it's literally listed as a toss-up. Liberal, CPC, and Bloc. Toss-up. So it'll be very competitive, and it would be a lot of headlines when it takes place. But there is an opportunity here for the Liberals to secure another seat for itself and increase its majority overall, or an opportunity for the Conservatives to hold the seat, or an opportunity for the Bloc Québécois to take the seat back. Because in 22, no, sorry, that's not true. That's not true. This has been a Conservative seat, at least since 2019, the 2019 election. But in 2019, the Conservatives won it by 35.7 to 35 over the Bloc. Then 2021, the margin was larger, 40.4 to 34.1 over the Bloc. And then in 2025, the parties were all three parties were within 3% of each other. And now, according to projections, they're within 2% of each other, right? Or the Bloc Québécois can pick up the seat, because the Bloc Québécois has won the seat before. And it becomes another feather in Blanchette's cap, and becomes an issue strategically for him that he can ride, saying here's proof, that Quebec wants what the Parti Québécois is going to be offering in terms of a separation referendum option, or that type of thing, or whatever he's going to do with that information, if the vote should go that way. But if the Conservatives lose this seat, now if they lose it to the Bloc, maybe they'll be able to make a case for something. They could turn around and says, well, it once was a Bloc seat, so it's just going back there, or something of the sort. But it could cause people to call into question Poilièvre's leadership, because that would be 4 by-elections in a row now that the Conservatives don't do well in. And in the first 3, they weren't expected to do well, but the turnout they got was absolutely abysmal. And this one, if not only is this guy being the 6th person who leaves the party for whatever reason under Pierre Poilievre's leadership, but also causes him to lose a seat. That might be another nail in the coffin. The one that does him in, perhaps, particularly hand in hand, as I keep on saying, with fundraising, if those numbers go down. But, and I mean, and the numbers will go down this year, because last year there was an election year, but I mean, down as opposed to non-election years for this party. But there's a brew of narratives coming together, especially with what we've been seeing in the last few weeks, right? The airing of dirty laundry out in public, and the multiplication of articles and opinion pieces wondering if Pierre has passed his best before date. Hint, he was past before his best. He was past his best before date quite a long time ago. On the show, we called it, we saw it during the lead up to the election, where there was a key moment where Poilievre needed to pivot, and he chose not to. And that was the moment passed him by, and he instantly became yesterday's man. It happened really, really fast. But he just didn't pick up on where things were going. And he got left behind. right? Um, so there was an expectation, and he had said it himself with that video he did in Damien Kirk's backyard, his farm, walking through the field with Anna, you know, stating that there was going to be some type of change coming, and then the change never came. There were no lessons learned. There were several attempts to pivot, makeovers, rebrandings, all that kind of stuff. None of them stuck, or he just wasn't able to commit to any of them. A lot of them were just doomed from the start as well. Um, but that stuff didn't work out for him, and now I think it is Scott Reed from the Curse of Politics, or the Hurly Burly, is out there and saying it seems like Pierre Poilievre's thing is just, F it, I'm just gonna be me, right? Um, However, that is working for him at the moment. So the conservative strategy appears to be at the moment is run the exact same play against Carney as we did with Trudeau. Keep on pumping something, keep on putting something out into the public sphere. He's corrupt. He's incompetent. He's in it for himself. He's self-dealing. Yeah, um, uh, he's given it all away to Brookfield. Yeah, he's making deals with China of all things, which always makes me laugh again because again, regular reminder that it was the Conservatives under Harper, after coming into office, swearing that they were going to stand up to China. They didn't even go to the opening ceremonies of the 2008 Olympics. We're going to show China. And then later on ended up in China with his tail between his legs with the chairman of China chastising him in public, was reported on for taking so damn long to get his tail to Beijing. After which, there was a very secretive signing away of portions of our sovereignty to China for a period of 31 years under the FIPA. But apparently now it's terrible to do trade with China. Um, and that was signed in Russia. We were not allowed to know a lot of its terms. So there's what the conservatives say about China when they're not in power, and then there's what conservatives do with China when they are in power, right? Well, let's not forget that when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in office as prime minister, and we had detained Meng Wanzhou of Huawei at the request of the United States because we have an extradition treaty. It was the conservatives at one point when China opted for hostage diplomacy and certain tariffs that were harming us, who begged Trudeau and were writing these opinion pieces telling him to let her go, or that we had made a mistake in respecting our extradition treaty with the United States at the time, which would set an extremely bad precedent if Trudeau had listened to them, right? Because of China, we teach China and the entire world that if you want something from Canada, just kidnap a couple of our citizens and then hold them long enough until we bend the knee to you. That's not a message we want to send. But there were some opinion pieces basically suggesting that we do just that. I will bring it to your attention that the people doing that are pretty much the same people that are right now and have been for a while now begging us to sacrifice everything to the United States just to get a deal signed as fast as possible, and framing everything in the terms that it is somehow us, Canada, that is being the bad faith negotiator or incompetent negotiator in this whole situation, even though all of us have eyes and ears. And we can see of the two, Canada and United States, who is the bad faith party here, right? So, um, You can't bend the knee, just like we couldn't bend the knee to China and let Meng Wanzhou go early. Because what do we teach people when we do that? We had to respect the extradition treaty. We were stuck. And another nation put the screws to us to try to get us to bend. And what did we do? We not only stayed loyal to our word when we signed the treaty, Americans, take note. Staying loyal to your word when you sign a treaty or a negotiation or something like that, a deal, a contract. We did that when you called on us. When it came to Meng Wanzhou, at great cost to us and two of our citizens, by the way. Just a little note that is forgotten out there. In the comments, say, Canada's so unfair to us. They never do anything for us. Yeah. We also matched the tariffs on Chinese EVs, but that didn't earn us anything with this administration either. But I digress. Pierre, the conservative movement, not having a good day, not having a good week, not having a good month, not having a good year, really, and a little more than that. But we've seen the fraying from within, and the backstabbing, the backbiting, right? That one line by Pierre Poilièvre in the speech. You have some people going, so I listened to the whole speech, it was all about that. I can't believe you're making it all about that one line. Well, if you didn't want it to be about that one line, it's like, don't be upset that media is reporting on that line. Don't be upset that everybody in the room heard that line. Don't be upset that everybody watching it, I guess, heard that line, and everybody's antenna went because of that line. Don't be mad because that happened. Be mad because your guy was sloppy and careless or reckless enough to put that frickin' line in there in the first place. There's your problem. Or as the Dixie Chicks would sing, there's your trouble, there's your trouble. The guy can't help slipping the line in. That's your problem. You got the negative press because this guy did not have the judgment or the discernment necessary to sit there thinking through and say, hey, what would happen if I include this line? Or he did think about it and decided, hey, I will do that, and did not have the judgment and discernment to know that that would not be a good idea. One or the other. But either way, there's an issue of judgment and discernment at play. And then we got all the complaints. Oh my God, the press is so covering us so badly, and oh, it's so unfair. Why are they not covering the important stuff? Why are they not covering our policy? Because you guys are washing your dirty laundry out in public. Seriously. You guys are having tantrums in cereal aisles because you're having more fun determining which among you are pure and true conservatives rather than doing anything that's actually useful for the country or even your party or yourselves at this moment. It's embarrassing. It's painful to watch. I mean, sure, we laugh and snicker. I mean, you kind of brought that upon yourselves, but you're just being ridiculously silly. While at the same time trying to present yourself as a government in waiting and as a serious option. Again, we have eyes and ears. You're doing this out in public. We see you. You realize we can see you, right? Ooh, boy, this party. Um, Dona Carol, I remember when Huawei was a new player in the telecom industry. We started with selling their data sticks. That was in 2007-ish. Yeah, indeed. Here we go. We have a uncover here. Whoops. Trying to get this one here. Conservatives seek emergency trade committee meeting, demand Carney explain plan to counter Trump's tariffs. This is the other thing, right? You didn't explain your plan. You didn't explain your plan enough. What's your plan? You don't have a plan. Literally, the no plan party is asking the prime minister to come to a committee when he is sitting at the high rollers table at the international poker tournament at which everyone is cheating. Thank you, Belle of the Ranch, and Beau of the fifth column for that expression. And to say, hey, guys, what if we play cards up? This is not a serious party. What benefit could there be to Canada to go to that emergency meeting and explain our plan to counter Trump tariffs in any way that would be satisfying while we are in the negotiation? Just put our cards face up on the table. It's not the first time they ask us to do this. This is them going back to their greatest hits, but now that we had two sets of tariffs, oh, we need to have an emergency meeting. Like, this is new. The two sets of tariffs are new, but the Donald Trump is just ridiculously tariffing us and everyone else in the world for ridiculous reasons over and over again. That's just stupid. The fentanyl tariffs were stupid. There wasn't a highway of fentanyl from Canada into the United States, and even if there were, it was the job of the United States Customs to pick that up, not our job to do anything about it. As good neighbors, of course, we would. We had no obligation. That was bogus. And then everything that has followed, the IEEA or whatever tariffs that were judged illegal by the Supreme Court. Now Donald Trump is trying to do all this other stuff now. He replaced those ones with some 10% tariffs that he could only impose for 6 months. There's a lot of talk out there. We even mused about it jokingly that the reason that we got hit with the tariffs is because, at the end of the World Cup, the Spanish goaltender at the ceremony, shook the hand of Infantino. Donald Trump was trying to talk to him like this, just like sort of like pretty much walked by him. Yeah, yeah. Went to Scheinbaum, shook her hand, and then Carney got a bit of a hug. If you're actually watching the video, like this, Donald Trump is like giving a little bit of side eye. Right, and then there was also the fact that he was, like, ushered off the stage as he was after he had handed them the cup because the moment was about him, and that, the photo that was used by Spain all over was a photo that didn't include Trump in it. People were saying that Trump was photoshopped out of it. He wasn't photoshopped out of it. They just, took one after he was ushered off. Took one from that moment, and they used that one instead. Um, but, a lot of plausible theory. He did not get the love. He did not get the hug. So, therefore, uh, boom, tariffs. It's good narrative and one that's likely, but unfortunately, in this case, it doesn't hold. The reason it holds is because those tariffs that he imposed on us to make up for the ones that were not deemed legal by the Supreme Court could only be imposed for 6 months, and that 6 months ends on July 24th. So when Donald Trump turned around and says, "You have 30 days to do this, or else," the or else is because his tariffs expire on July 24th. So if he needs to rebuild that tariff wall, He needs to find something else, so that's why we got this forced labor thing. And this sort of like, maybe it's wildfire, maybe it's not, but, more than a year after you, uh, didn't allow us to import as many cars now that we're not, making as many in Canada anymore. And a year more than a year after, I mean, if you can include all the time they've been complaining about this, we've been complaining about dairy, right? The three things in there that they are complaining about are things that have happened for supply management has always been there. The booze not on the shelves, we did that pretty much instantly. They're only getting around to be mad about it enough about it now to do something about it. And the other thing is about the auto industry. And with these tariffs, because you can tariff anything else, they just basically uh, uh, hardly tariffed anything auto at all or nothing auto at all. They excluded auto parts and stuff because they need that. But they're tariffing wigs and antiques between 100 and 250 years old and stuff with like hockey sticks, down feather jackets. Now, and we say, well, these things, it's a whole long list of things that are sort of like, they're not big industries. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not big industries, but those that are going to be hit are going to be hit pretty hard. And it's about $20 billion worth of trade. So just because we're getting that again with the 30-day time delay, but that 30-day, there's a reason. It's not just Trump doing 30 days, and then I might change my mind. He has a deadline on this one. So, um, but as I think it is a professor, Justin Wolfers, I think of University of Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, states what the United States is teaching the world. Because again, we teach the world, right? Just as we would have taught the world had we let Meng Wanzhou go, that the way you deal with Canada, if you want something, is just kidnap a few of their citizens and then hold out because they'll bend. What the United States is teaching everyone is that uh, the deals they make are not worth the paper they're signed on. Their word literally has no value. And that's something that's going to be very hard for it to come back from. Like, your word means nothing. What do you do with that? And then we get to a point, right, where when the prime minister says no deal is better than a bad deal, there's also probably a lot of people in Canada that are at the point now. It's like, we're not going to get a deal with this guy. We're just not going to get a deal with this guy. So just screw it. Wait him out. Don't sign a damn thing. There is no such thing as a good deal. There's no such thing as a win-win deal with this guy. Just don't say it. Take the lumps. Don't sign a damn thing. Hopefully, a better opportunity comes along. But yeah, Kit Linda, he's also frustrated because he screwed up his Iran war and doesn't know how to get out of it. Yeah, that too. Yes. Um, Counting locals, but Canada still doesn't have any worthwhile trade agreements. Well, that depends. Trade agreements, first of all, take a very, very, very long time to negotiate, typically. Um, to it would be a rather unrealistic expectation just in terms of basic dynamics, regardless of who was in power. For a party to come in and say, yeah, we're going to start a trade negotiation with country X on which we have like no trade negotiations underway before, not at any level, and have one within a year and 3 months. And then again, I guess it depends what someone considers a worthwhile trade agreement. We have one with Indonesia now, fourth most populous country in the world. That would seem like it would be worthwhile. But some of that, a lot of that talk was started before Mark Carney came along. There's been some announcements recently, and we'll have more on future shows about a trade agreement with the United Arab Emirates, which seems like a big deal considering the size of its sovereign wealth fund in particular. Um, there's one also with Ecuador, not one of the world's biggest nations, but a nation with which Canada has had a long alliance here in the Americas, right? The one with Ecuador will go very well with the one we are negotiating with the Mercosur bloc of nations. But again, whether that one's going to be considered worthwhile, who knows? Prime Minister's on the record saying that he wants to double the size of our trade market right now. I think we have 16 free trade agreements that cover 51 different countries on the planet that affect 2/3 of the world's GDP. And there was another part of that statistic that I'm trying to remember. 2/3 of the world's GDP, 16 countries. Yes. And the goal is to double that to a market, which represents a market of 1.5 billion people. That's the fourth statistic. And the Prime Minister is aiming for us to have those types of trade agreements with markets that cover 3 billion of the world's people by the end of this year, because we are currently negotiating a free trade agreement with India. That certainly, it'd be hard for someone to dismiss that one as a not worthwhile agreement. It's the world's most populous country, also a country with a very large younger demographic. So the growth profile of that country is very positive. So, it would depend what one calls worthwhile trade agreements, but clearly there's work on that. There's also one in the works with Thailand, and one works with Philippines, and then one the Philippines, and one with the entire ASEAN block of nations, which I believe is an 11 nation block. That would be a significant one as well when it comes to pass. Right? So, again, it depends what color lenses you want to look at these things through. But work is being done. Deals are being signed. Progress is being made. Right? We have to see what it materializes into as the years go by. But as we say on the show, and I think we picked this one up from House of L, trade is not just things going across borders. Trade is also legal architecture. You need to have this stuff in place and negotiated, and the I's dotted and the T's crossed before the trade starts in earnest. And then when you have all that done, then people need to go out and make the calls and build the relations. Just because you have a trade agreement signed doesn't mean that the business happens naturally. You actually have to go out and do business. Right? Those contracts take time to be negotiated and signed. So when you sit down and you game out the process, again, you kind of realize that the conservatives running to the mic, and they have been, this isn't a new thing. They've been doing this for a long time now. Where's the results? Where are the trade deals? Why isn't this done yet? And are basically founding their critique on things that are ridiculous or not likely to have happened, or things that would be just clearly unreasonable to expect if you knew what you were doing. And all of this doesn't send the confidence to people who are paying attention that they would be a good government in waiting if they expect that all of this stuff that they're complaining didn't happen could have happened in this period of time. Especially when considering the number of balls that are being juggled at the current time, with the guy south of us pulling the rug out from under our feet at any given moment. And he's done that multiple times already. At some point, you got to give us you got to give a guy some grace. um. So yeah. Um. But and listen, you can't expect the trolls not to be trolls, and you can't expect people that are doing this because who people who might be like completely politically atheists and just doing it because they know what works and what generates clicks and revenue and all that kind of stuff, right? It's learning to discern what content is which, but you can't let that type of stuff influence your thinking, right? David Eby, Premier David Eby, is not crazy when he sits in front of a mic and says, "You really cannot expect us to make a deal with you to hand over our critical minerals and our steel and aluminum, which you really, really need, while simultaneously you've declared war on our lumber industry." That's not going to happen, right? Um, we need to treat each other better than that. So, all of this context is going on. Prime Minister names some by elections. I listed you the four that are available. But there are only three, as I mentioned. Only three of the four of the six. Six by elections are expected. Only four can be held now because four seats have been vacated. The other two will be vacated in the end of August, and then there will be a 6-month countdown. Because North Vancouver, Capilano, British Columbia, held by a Liberal. Beaches, East York, held by Liberal. Chicoutimi, Le Fjord, held by Conservative. And Saint-Hyacinthe, Baguette, Acton, held by Bloc Québécois. The one for which there is not going to be a by-election is Saint-Hyacinthe, Baguette, Acton, the one vacated by Simon-Pierre Savard. Now, he made, even though the seat has been vacated only as of July 7th, if I am not mistaken here, just want to make sure that I got the information correctly. Oops. I may have closed that window on myself. All right. So I believe the day is July 7th here. He announced on May 28th that he intended to resign that seat. Right? Monsieur Martel in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, who is where there is going to be a by-election, he accepted his Senate seat on July 7th. So the seat was vacated on July 7th for both of them, But one of them, the seat was announced that it would become vacant and was vacated on July 7th. And for the other one, was announced that it would be vacated on May 28th, with the date of vacancy being July 7th. But it's the one that was most recent that's going for a by-election now, the one where the Liberals may have a chance of flipping the seat. Beach is East York. Everyone pretty much expects that it will go to the Liberals. The North Vancouver Capilano, a lot of people expecting it will go to the Liberals. The NDP can potentially be competitive there. So, and they have a new leader as well. Avi Lewis, by the way, has declared that he's not going to run in any of these by-elections. But Chicoutimi Lafiar said that has a good chance of going into the Liberal column, and also has a good chance of the Conservatives just losing the seat. That's the one the Prime Minister wants to. Now, Prime Minister can say that given there is another one uh, that is going to be available um, in the province of Quebec, one of the two that have been announced, but the seat is not yet vacated in Laurier Sainte Marie, the one that was held by Stephen Guilbeault. That one is not going to be vacated until August. So one could say that you're saving the two in Quebec for the same time since they're in the same province. But one could say, well, why didn't you just save all three then? Especially the Chicoutimi Lafiar, given that, nobody had any idea that would ever be vacant. Nobody was expected it to be in any case, but nobody had any idea it would be until July 7th. So it seems that the Prime Minister might be, when I'm talking about some strategic shenanigans here, to as the Conservatives are airing their dirty laundry out in public, and as more people are questioning whether or not Pierre has passed his expiration date, and as one MP announces, you know what, I said I would be here for 4 years, but yeah, I think I've had enough, I'm gone. Then Pierre shows another undisciplined blunder by making his comment at the Stampede about Eastern liberal elites when referring to Caroline Elliott, and in particular Corey Tenike, but also other people, some people who have actually worked for him and who have helped him. Again, loyalty being only a one-way street in Poilièvre world. You have all of this happening. The Prime Minister gets another MP to leave the party. Well, I mean, not leave the party, but leave Pierre Poilievre's caucus in a riding that happens to be a toss-up. In a riding in which, even if the Liberals don't win it, if the Liberals win it, that's the best situation of all for them. But if the Bloc wins it, it still results in the Conservatives being down one more MP under Poilievre's watch. And somewhere in there, of course, we had the three other by-elections that handed, in which Poilievre basically handed the Liberals a majority government due to his terrible performance. One would have to wonder if Mark Carney is actually trying to finish Pierre off. Because could you imagine Could you imagine by-elections happening in Canada in August? August 31st. Just as we're getting ready for come back from school. Come back to school, I should say. Just as the House is ready to convene. And Pierre Poilièvre walking in, having lost a seat. In a vote. In Quebec in particular. The province where he needs to show that he has some life at the moment if he wants to hope to become prime minister one day. And Quebecois are just not, he's not going down well there. Could there be shenanigans at hand? Could this be the prime minister going in for the kill? Because that's not a great narrative for the leader of the opposition. Could that be what happens, especially if there's some fundraising numbers that come in that show that the party is not doing as well as it used to? Now, there's a lot of people suggesting that if that's what the prime minister is doing, he should be careful what he wishes for because the next leader might not be Poilièvre-like. One person could say that, yeah, that is a dangerous thing. But they also said it about the prime minister calling the by-election early that allowed Poilièvre to gain the seat back. And that turns out to have been a stroke of genius. Because Pierre's been hasn't been helping himself very much since. According to Benjamin Lopez Stephen here of CBC, Prime Minister Mark Carney has called 3 by-elections in the BC riding of North Vancouver-Capilano, the Ontario riding of Beaches East York, and the Quebec riding of Chicoutimi-Le The by-elections will be held on August 31st, according to a news release posted on the Prime Minister's website Sunday morning. Candidates will seek to replace former Liberal MP Jonathan Wilkinson, now Canada's ambassador to the European Union, as well as former Liberal MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith and former Conservative MP Richard Martel, who has been appointed to the Senate. The Liberals need to win one of the races to maintain control of the House of Commons. As things stand, the Liberals have 171 seats, not counting Speaker Francis Scarpellegia. By the time MPs return from the summer break in late September, the Liberals are expected to be sitting at 170 seats. That's because former Liberal cabinet minister Stephen Guilbeault is stepping down August 28th. Due to other vacancies, the combined seat total of the opposition parties in late September is expected to be 165 seats. Conservative MP Cathay Wagenthal has indicated she will make a resignation official on August 31st. Plus, NDP MP Alexandre Boulris is tossing his hat into the provincial ring and has said he'll wait for the Quebec election to be called before officially resigning. So that could be another one as well. That, how would you put it? This could be also when I said that the prime minister was looking, and again, you could still ask the question, well, then why not all 4? But he could add this one. Says, well, I have these 2 in Quebec, and Alexandre Boulris' seat's going to be coming as well, so we'll do them all at the same time, and that would push those ones until after the Quebec election, and probably after the Alberta separation referendum, because one of those races is in Saskatchewan, so that might be a little too close to home, I would predict here. But I was wrong. I didn't figure that any of them at all would come before the Alberta referendum, and that's not the case here. If the Liberals win one of the races, that will bring them into 171 seats, which lets them maintain a technical majority in the House, where they would need to rely on the Speaker to break ties. There's one vacant seat Carney did not call a by-election for, Saint-Hyacinthe-Baguette-Acton in Quebec. That riding was represented by former Bloc Québécois MP Simon-Pierre Savard-Tremblay, who stepped down earlier this year to run in Quebec's provincial election. The Prime Minister's office told CBC News on Sunday afternoon it would have more to say about Saint-Hyacinthe-Baguette-Acton in due course. The earliest the by-election can be called for is August 10th, with the latest being December 19th, according to Elections Canada. Ah, that might have something to do with it. Okay. So that, again, that would have something to do. Well, actually, that can't. Oh, yes. I see. Yes. Because his, hmm, August 19th to 20th. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yes, indeed. Because the date announced, uh, that one was the May 28th date announced, August 10th. Uh, yes, because there's a certain number of days that you have to wait after um, a seat becomes vacated. But that doesn't make any sense. Okay, I actually don't understand this why the election can't be called before August 10th in Saint-Hyacinthe Bagot Acton, but there seems to be an actual reason here. Um, so, but I don't know what it is because there's a certain number of days that you do have to wait between the seat becomes vacant. I think it is 11 days, and you can announce one to give Elections Canada the time to do what it needs to do administratively. Um, but like I said, this one was announced on May 28th for being vacated July 7th, which was the same day of Richard Martel's, which has been called. So maybe there's another reason here that by-election uh, can't be called by um, the 10th of August. So I'll go take a look at that when I have an opportunity, and hopefully I can bring you that answer. The article then goes on to say the Liberals will run Carney's former deputy chief. Let's try that again. The Liberals will run Carney's former deputy chief of staff Braden Cayley in North Vancouver, Capilano, Tanvir Chanoise is in Beaches, East York, and Danielle Gobey in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. On social media, the Conservatives announced that they are running Stephen Curran in North Vancouver, Capilano, and Régis Gaudreau in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. The NDP told CBC on Friday evening it has provided nomination packages to interested candidates and will have more to share about nominations in these ridings soon. On Sunday morning, the Bloc Québécois announced Caroline Dubé will be their candidate for the by-election in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. The Green Party will run Shelley Lucci in North Vancouver, Capilano, according to the party's website. So there you go, kits and cups. And let me see if I can not find out. So why can't the by-election in Saint-Hyacinthe Bagot Acton be called prior to August 10th? All right, let's see if we get an answer to that. Let's see here. The by-election for Saint-Hyacinthe Bagot Acton cannot be held rather than called prior to August 10th due to statutory timeframes mandated under the Canada Elections Act. The chief electoral officer officially received the speaker's warrant declaring the seat vacant on June 22nd, 2026. By law, the Prime Minister has a specific window to officially announce or call the by-election, which for this running spans from July 3rd till December 19th. The minimum campaign length is says that once the Prime Minister announces the vote, the Canada Elections Act dictates that a federal campaign must last a minimum of 36 days and a maximum of 50. Because federal by-elections must always land on a Monday, adding the mandatory 36-day minimum campaign period to the start of the announcement window, mathematical locks Monday, August 10th as the absolute earliest possible date the actual vote could take place. Okay. There you go. Okay, now I understand where my error was. I misread what was. It's not the date that it can't be called for. It's the date that it can't take place. So yes, got it. I misread the terminology. That was my bad there. So it could have been announced now. There was nothing preventing it. But the earliest or the latest that there can be a date announced is August 10th. So we're probably going to get um, we're going to be getting an announcement at some point of when those by-elections will be. Well, some of those by-elections, probably the latter three, then, because the Alexandre Boulris one, if he's waiting until closer to the Quebec election, actually, before announcing it, that one won't be available for the next round of by-elections if something has to be announced by the 10th of August. So we'll get another announcement. They won't be held in the summer, but we will get another announcement in the summer of more by-elections to come. All right. Oh, Kim Davis, accused of hiding inheritance to avoid paying gay couple 565,000. She doesn't mind paying the lawyers though, does she? Just saying. Would have been way less expensive for you, Kim, to just. Oh well. Oh well. So that's the story with the by-elections. Now, potential shenanigans on the part of the prime minister. But now, some juicy stuff, because there have been some battling opinion pieces coming out. One of them was written by Andrew Coyne about 3 days ago, and it seems to have generated a reaction because the Sun, Toronto Sun, came out with something. Now, again, when I say Toronto Sun, I need to remind you the American owned Toronto Sun, right? So, the Globe and Mail, Andrew Coyne. Canadian Conservatives have a patriotism problem. You know that one probably didn't land well somewhere. Uh, I wonder if in his next speech or video, that Pierre Poilièvre will start talking about Andrew Coyne as a Eastern liberal elite. I believe those were the words. Here we go. Does Canadian conservatism have a problem with patriotism? Do some conservatives feel a greater loyalty to their ideology than their country? Does this lead to them to side with Donald Trump and the United States against Canada in a dispute that turns in part on whether Canada should exist as a country separate from the United States? Does it also lead them to favor the separatist side in the coming referendum in Alberta, which is also about whether the country should exist in its current form? Have conservatives become so embittered by a century and more of liberal dominance of Canadian politics that they have made the same mistake liberals so often make of equating the country with liberaldom, and in repudiating the one rejected the other? It's not me asking these questions, it's their fellow Canadian conservatives, alarmed by the flood of online conservative commentators rushing to take the American side in the Trump administration's series of assaults on Canada's economy, security, and sovereignty. Some leading conservatives have lately been moved to issue some quite stark warnings about where this is taking the movement. Quote, Canadian Conservatives, Matt Spoke, a board member of the uber conservative Canada Strong and Free Network, wrote on X, quote, remember that you owe your loyalty first to other Canadians, even those you disagree with, before giving it to conservatives in other countries, no matter how much you might share ideology. It should not be a challenge for the right to balance genuine admiration for American civilization with opposition to the often outrageous treatment Canada receives from the current U.S. administration, writes the conservative columnist Jeff Russ in a strong piece decrying the, quote, rabble of pick-me Canadians who swallow any cynical attacks on Canada hook, line, and sinker. Indeed, it should not be a challenge, so why is it for so many conservatives, small c, and conservatives, capital C? In part, the right is going through something of the same agonies the left went through a century ago when the Soviet Union was still viewed in some circles as a beacon of progress. Forced to choose, as they saw it, between their country and their ideology, a great many fellow travelers took up the Moscow line, some even to the point of treason. Now it is Mr. Trump and the MAGA movement who exerts a similar hold among some on the right. It's hard to call it conservatism. Virtually nothing of what Mr. Trump says or does is recognizably conservative in any coherent sense of the word. But it is what a great many self professed conservatives have lately decided they believe, being less conservatives because they believe in certain principles than people who embrace whatever principles conservatives are supposed to believe, identity before ideology. That's their privilege until it collides with the national interest. As Mr. Spoke writes in a follow up piece in the conservative magazine Without Diminishment, quote, there's nothing conservative about subordinating. So let's try that again. There's nothing conservative about subordinating our country's interests to those of another country. Ideological or partisan affinity is no excuse. Conservatism does not exist so that conservatives can feel solidarity with other conservatives. The country does not exist to serve our ideology. It is, of course, entirely legitimate to criticize the Carney government for its handling of relations with the United States, and there is much to criticize on an issue that was central to the Liberal message in the last election campaign. But the gist of many of these critiques is that the American position is always the reasonable one, and that it is Canada who is always the one out of line. Let me repeat that. But the gist of many of these critiques is that the American position is always the reasonable one, and that it is Canada who is always the one out of line. Founding principle to everything that the conservatives are doing here. Again, on a given issue, that may well be the case, supply management, for example, but the tone of these comments is that Canada is necessarily in the wrong on any issue, more or less by definition. If there is a problem between our two countries, it must be our fault. At any rate, the onus is always on us to resolve it. It's always on us to resolve the problem in conservative land. That would be craven at the best of times, but in the face of the manifestly unreasonable positions of the Trump administration, including their declared desire to annex the country, it calls into question not only the critics' judgment, but their loyalties. But the conservative loyalty problem is broader than mere enthusiasm for all things MAGA, and long predates it. In virtually every other democratic country, patriotism is the province of the right. Only in Canada has it been the monopoly of the left. Not sure about that statement, but let's go. Continue on. That is in part a legacy of Canada's historic insecurity relative to the United States, which seemed to legitimize arguments that we needed a larger role for government than they, if not to defend us against assimilation into the American empire, then as evidence in itself of our supposedly innate differences. But it is even more a legacy of conservatives' historic insecurity relative to the liberals. Inarguably, Canadian patriotism has been manipulated and distorted over the years to serve liberal ends, from the self serving and exclusionary list of supposed, quote, Canadian values to the very colors of the flag, a case made to devastating effect in the journalist Peter Brimelo's influential 1986 book, The Patriot Game. It was tempting to come away from it believing that the whole thing was a con, not just liberal nationalism, but the very idea of a Canadian nation in all its regional, linguistic, and racial complexity. Indeed, Mr. Brimlow had his own agenda, not merely the deconstruction of a particular brand of Canadian nationalism, but a kind of Anglo-essentialism in which English-speaking Canadians would inevitably, once free of their liberal blinders, give up on trying to placate French Quebec and embrace their common destiny with their colinguals to the south. That too has a long tradition in this country. Mr. Brimlow himself was largely channeling Goldwin Smith, the Anglo-Canadian historian whose 1891 book, Canada and the Canadian Question, argued the case for annexation more passionately and at greater length than any American. It has echoes even today. Quote, I can't help but wonder what our lives would be like now if we had joined the US 250 years ago, the conservative and Canadian journalist Terry Newman posted on July 4th. I'm not convinced we made the right choice. It's one thing to argue this as a theoretical it's one thing to argue this as a theoretical curiosity. Maybe the US should not have declared independence from Britain, but when it is something of a live issue, when the President of the United States is threatening to use, quote, economic force to annex us, too often conservative critiques of this country read not as, quote, here are some problems Canada is facing and here's how we can fix them, but as, quote, this country is fundamentally broken and the proof of that is right next door. The motto of the Order of Canada is, quote, they desire a better country. It doesn't mean another country. Boom. But then, is it any worse to favor destroying Canada by absorption into the American colossus than it is to favor destroying it by breaking it apart? What is truly remarkable is the willingness of some on the right, the far right for the most part, but not exclusively, to carry water for both the Trump administration and the separatists. Alberta separatism, in particularly, is an avowedly conservative project. The galvanizing issue is not language or culture, but an argument that Albertans and other Canadians hold fundamentally dissimilar views about the role of the state. More crassly, that other Canadians are fleecing Albertans to pay for their tastes in government. Meanwhile, conservatives have increasingly taken to citing Quebec and Quebec nationalists in particular as their inspiration, not only for the powers they have wrested from Ottawa, but for their willingness to use the state to impose a monoculture on society. The leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, a registered federal party, aspiring to elect MPs to the Parliament of Canada, has gone so far as to announce that his party would support the yes side in any future referendum on both Alberta and Quebec. Supposedly, this is intended merely to force the issue of, quote, restoring provincial autonomy, a strategy that has in the past led many Quebecers to vote yes, and which many Albertans are toying with today. The objective radical decentralization is one of which reasonable people and patriots can differ. But patriotism precludes tactics for whatever end that amounts to threatening your country's existence. You can't pretend to love your country while you are holding a knife to its throat. Well, this is a democracy. No one says you have to love your country, but no one says people have to vote for you if you don't. And so far as people have reasons to doubt whether conservatives love their country, they won't. This is not a phenomenon unique to Canadian conservatives. The MAGA movement's very slogan seems to betray contempt for America as it is, as opposed to the one they imagine once existed. They seem at war with virtually every institution of American government and every value of American life. Even in a society as polarized as the United States, so lacking in shared truths, this has begun to catch up with them. For their part, the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau seemed at times to take a view of the country as stained irredeemably by the sin of colonialism, and that proved part of their undoing. When it began to seem that this government was moved less by a practical concern for improving the lives of Indigenous people than by a kind of moral preening with the country as a prop. People would like to be governed by people who actually care about their welfare, but even more, they would like to be governed by the kind of people who have the country in their bones, who are loyal to the country because they are loyal generally. Why patriotism? To believe in the goodness of the country, not in its perfection or even its superiority, but in the idea that it is broadly good that it exists. It is merely an extension of a belief in the goodness of things, that the world is good, that life is good. None of these beliefs are empirically provable. They amount more to a theory of existence, an ontology, if you will. You love your country in the end because it is your country. You love it out of gratitude for what has been handed down to us by our ancestors. You love it out of solidarity with those who are living here now, and you love it out of ambition for what it might mean to generations yet to come. That's not a moral obligation, it's just a healthier way of being. So, Andrew Coyne put that out. And then the next day, um, the Americans who own the media network in Canada that goes by Postmedia News and pretends to be Canadian. Really, 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 really want you to know and believe that liberals don't get to define patriotism. To which I would immediately respond, the Americans who pay the editorial board of Postmedia News, again, a news agency masquerading as being Canadian and for Canadian interests, uh, don't get to define who in Canada gets to define patriotism. That would be my response. But you believe you have a point, so go on. Postmedia News says conservatives have every right to criticize Prime Minister Mark Carney and his government, and to suggest this indicates disloyalty to Canada is absurd. Okay, so we are already starting with the absurd because nobody has suggested that Prime Minister Mark Carney being criticized is what indicates disloyalty. There is a tone and a flavor, a frequency and a gleefulness with which it is being done. that is concerning. There is a going out of your way to be mean and cruel manner in which this is happening. There is a feeling the need to swing at every single damn pitch manner in which this is happening that is leading people to question conservative loyalty to Canada. But it is not the fact that they are merely, simply criticizing the Prime Minister. Quote, it's to be expected from Liberal MPs, which does not mean all Liberals, who view themselves as Canada's natural governing party, who see Conservatives as not simply wrong, but evil, and that no criticism of their great leaders is ever justified. Again, see, this is the type of editorial content that serves nobody well. Because if the conservative belief is that liberals portray conservatives as not simply wrong, but evil, if you denounce that, if you say that that is wrong, and then you cannot look at what's coming from your own side of the fence and detect that there are certain key players in your own movement that are doing the exact same damn thing, and you write an article like this and you denounce one side but not the other, you're not help. You need to own your stuff first, and then you can criticize other people for doing the same things that your side does because you've already called it out on your side. But if you're calling it out on the other side and you're not existing, not acknowledging that this exact same damn reality is coming from your side, then what are you doing here? But this insidious, of course, it's insidious. This insidious idea that conservatives are being disloyal to Canada has also become a commonplace theme in the liberal media, and even more bizarrely, among some conservatives. It's commonplace throughout Canadian society, dude. There's a reason that conservatives have dropped. They took 41.3% of the vote in the election. There are certain public opinion polls that show them uh, barely hanging on to 30s. Nanos has them at 31, right? There's their national uh, aggregate average for the party, if we're looking at federal projections, is at 35. Uh, those 6 points fewer in popularity, that means something. There's a reason for that. The idea that some conservatives may not have the best interest of Canada at heart and that they're not particularly cheering for Canada is not something that's just something commonplace in liberal media. Canadians are feeling it too because we have eyes and ears. Again, you realize that we see you, right? Using their logic, conservatives, save for the few approved by the Laurentian elites, there we go, some the boogeymen are in this piece, are nothing more than cheerleaders for US President Donald Trump who believe Canada is broken and want to dismantle the country. As Conservative MP Melissa Landsman noted on X, if Liberals want to talk about a lack of patriotism, let them account for their decade of silence when their leader, Justin Trudeau, routinely portrayed Canada, its people, its history, and its institutions as fundamentally and irretrievably racist. Never happened. Never happened. That's the conservative version of that story. Owning the bad parts of your history or owning the parts of your history that are not as glorious doesn't mean that you're portraying the country as being irretrievably racist. just means that you're painting with all the colors that are available to you. You're telling the full story. Conservatives don't like that for some reason. Quote, she was responding to a Friday Globe and Mail column by Andrew Coyne entitled Canadian Conservatives Have a Patriotism Problem, but the issue goes far beyond that. Trudeau's constant moral preening, for example, fed a wave of historical revisionism that led to church burnings and the vandalizing and beheading of statues of Canadian nation builders, including Canada's first Prime Minister, Sir John A conservative. I just can't let this go. As for Canada's conservative movement today, harboring within it a minority of separatists and others who want to see Canada fail, the far greater threat to our sovereignty is a Liberal government that now twists itself into pretzels to avoid saying anything negative anything that might offend our new strategic partner, China. Okay, this, by the way, is the 4 closing paragraphs of this article. We're so far, it's just whining. Liberal elites. Trudeau was such a virtue signaler. He tried to make us believe that Canada was irretrievably racist. It's historical revisionism to indicate that one of Sir John A. Macdonald's decisions, particularly when it comes to First Nations, Inuit Métis people, may not have been the best one. Yeah, such revisionism. It's the revisionism that led to the church burnings, not the fact that the people who used to occupy those churches did things that were atrocious to fellow human beings and never accepted accountability for it. And after a while, people got really mad. It doesn't excuse it, but you could certainly understand how it happened. Come on. So, first of the 4 paragraphs, I will reread it. As for Canada's conservative movement today, harboring within it a minority of separatists and others, who want to see Canada fail, the far greater threat to our sovereignty is a Liberal government that now twists itself into pretzels to avoid saying anything that might offend our new strategic partner, China. Okay, go back to what I said earlier in the show about conservatives signing us on to China with FIPA for 31 years. This is not a point. Nobody said China is our new strategic partner. We are reducing our exposure to a single point of failure, the United States, by pursuing a multiplicity of trade deals and partner deals and expanded trade with a whole bunch of other countries. Nobody has made China our new strategic partner, at least not in the way that the conservatives did when they signed away slices of our sovereignty away for 31 years. This is ridiculous. And to even suggest that of China and the United States, because even though they're not being mentioned here in this particular paragraph, if there is one country that we are twisting ourselves into pretzels to avoid saying anything to not offend, it's the frickin' United States. It's not China. Right now, it's the United States. So, a liberal government that is allegedly twisting itself into pretzels to avoid saying anything that might offend China, being portrayed as a greater threat to Canada than one of the 2 political parties that have a legitimate shot and traditionally have been the only 2 parties that have formed government, harboring within it a minority of separatists and not doing anything about it, and others who want to see Canada fail. There is no galaxy in which that is less of a threat than a country deciding when to run its mouth or hold its tongue on China. This is the thesis. The American owners who pay the people who form the editorial board of the National Post want Canadians to believe that China is our new strategic partner and that us going out of our way to not saying something to upset a strategic partner when that's what we're doing with the United States right now is a terrible thing. By the way, the conservatives keep on asking us to hold our tongue to not say anything to upset the United States. So the act of holding your tongue to not to say anything to upset a strategic partner, the thing that the conservatives are suggesting we do with the United States, but not do with China, who is not a strategic partner, but the conservatives like to believe the liberals are making them one, is a greater threat to society than being a political party that harbors, and not only harbors, but nourishes and feeds a separatist movement that wants Canada to fail, and others. Separatists and everybody that wants Canada to fail, welcome, and does nothing to root them out or sanction them. And that is actively seeking government. Again, I have eyes and ears. I know which one is the bigger threat to the country. Quote, it was identified as the primary, not quote, but going on with the article. It was identified as the primary source of foreign interference, this is China, and transnational repression in Canada by public inquiry just 3 years ago. One of many run by dictators we're now seeking trade deals with, while downplaying their abysmal records on human rights. Okay, again, this from the party that signed a 31-year deal with China. In Russia. Right? And would that be the foreign interference and transnational repression public inquiry we had just 3 years ago that the conservatives claimed that they wanted and wanted and wanted and wanted, and when it came time for them to lift a finger to actually make it happen, then suddenly started dragging their heels and they did everything to prevent that one? The one at which nobody from their party wanted to testify and felt they shouldn't have to show up and testify to do something to help Canada just because they weren't the government? That one? And then negates those last two paragraphs with the third one. That's nothing new. Governments of all stripes have done it in the past, and if it's our particular, so again, yes, that's their way of acknowledging that the conservatives did it with FIPA. Nothing new. Governments of all stripes have done it in the past, and if it's out of particular necessity today because of Trump's trade war, fair enough. Not if, it is. He is suspected of having slapped tariffs on us because he got a hug snub. He's that mercurial. It's not what happened, but he's suspected. He threatened to put tariffs on us for smoke coming across their border when they have smoke coming across our border too. And fires that have jumped over our border. Yes, it is particularly out of necessity because of Trump's trade war. And then we get to the final paragraph. But portraying Canada's official opposition as disloyal for fulfilling its constitutional duty is nonsense. Nobody is portraying Canada's official opposition as disloyal for fulfilling its constitutional duty. Canada's official opposition, however, is not fulfilling its constitutional duty. Since when is it a party's constitutional duty, particularly when they're supposed to be the loyal official opposition, in in particular, I should say. How is it its constitutional duty to, quote, harbor within it a minority of separatists and others who want to see Canada fail? And then giving them free rein to cheerlead for that, or even actively help in that coming to be the case. Where is that the party's constitutional duty to? Nobody's criticizing the official opposition for doing official opposition stuff. They're criticizing the official opposition for doing non-official opposition stuff, particularly non-loyal official opposition stuff. It's a literally load of BS here in this article. People are wondering whether or not the Conservatives are disloyal because the Conservatives keep on appearing to be cheering for the United States. Which brings us again to stuff that Andrew Coyne was saying in his column, right? When we're looking at conservatives. The American position is always the reasonable one. Canada is always the one that's out of line. If there's a problem between our two countries, it must be our fault. There's no way it could be anything that the other guy did. And at any rate, even if it was something the other did, the onus is always on us to resolve it. When that's the lens through which you look at everything that the government of the day does, and particularly when you add the layer on top of it that the government is inherently corrupt, the prime minister is inherently incompetent, they are self-dealing, right? When you add that layer on top of it, when you have a situation where another country is starting to annex you and keeps on making moves to destabilize you and to do the, you know, Tanya Harding, Jeff Galooly thing on our kneecaps with a tire iron. People with eyes and ears notice over a while that your body of work seems to be not very pro-Canada. And everyone with eyes and ears can also see Mark Carney at work all around the world trying to sign deals, so clearly he's not someone with whom it is difficult to sign a deal. Right? All these economic partnerships that we've been signing and free trade deals that are coming into being and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't happen if you are hard to negotiate with. We're showing that we can sign deals. We just can't sign deals with him. The same guy that every other nation on earth seems to be having problems signing deals with. Maybe that should clue you in that the problem is not us, the problem's him. People with eyes and ears can see and hear it, whereas the Conservatives, for some reason, can't. And again, since Occam's razor, that dictates that the most likely explanation is usually it. In this case, if one were to apply Occam's razor, what is most likely? That the Conservatives genuinely and honestly, hand to heart, just do not see it? What the United States is doing? Or that they do, but their paycheck / fundraising depends on them not seeing it, or at least acknowledging that they see it. what is most likely in a context where we can make deals with everybody else, but not with one country, and everybody else in the world seems to have a problem making deals with that one country, that our issue in not being able to come to a deal with that country would be our fault all the time, every day, for well over a year. This is why the conservatives are being considered disloyal. It's not because they're doing the job of opposing, right? It's how they are doing the job of opposing. Because claiming that you're opposing a government that you're accusing of stealing all your ideas is, and not so much opposing, but just gutter sniping without producing alternatives, and the inability to recognize, because it is statistically impossible that a government has only bad ideas. Broken clock syndrome alone means you're going to hit with a few of them. And not being able really to even acknowledge when, you know what, that's a half decent proposal, but here's how it can be better, which is also the job of opposition. So you have a lot of people all of a sudden. Liberals don't get to define patriotism. They're stealing all our ideas. But everything they do sucks. Oh my God, Trump is like slapping more tariffs on us. What did you do now, Carney? And why haven't you got a deal yet with someone who just keeps on like unilaterally? They literally were at the World Cup together the day before and the day after Trump slaps tariffs. Come on. How do you deal with someone like that? Well, it seems that some of the stuff started to get to certain people, like Jenny Byrne, for example, the person who coordinated the last campaign, who once again felt the need to come out and with her silver buffer and start buffing the shiniest political silver medal in Canadian history, or even human political history by this point now. Quote, Pierre Poilièvre delivered the party's strongest popular vote in nearly 40 years for Conservatives, the highest in the modern Conservative movement, including 44% in Ontario. Detractors are upset they weren't part of his success. Because we all must rush in again to try to portray Poilièvre as a success. Again, even though we all have eyes and ears. In this particular case, it seems that everyone who was associated in making that success happen, right, Jenny, seems to need to make the case to defend their work here. Pierre Poilievre delivered the party's strongest popular vote in nearly 40 years for the Conservatives. Yes, and he also delivered the strongest popular vote in nearly 40 years for the Liberals as well. You guys were at 41.3, but the Liberals picked up 43.8. You coordinated that campaign, Jenny. You did. Detractors are upset that they weren't part of his success. What success? He lost the election. He lost his seat. He lost the popular vote, which is not a thing in Canada. But he lost it as well. Then he lost 4 MPs to floor crossing. 6 in all because another one just hot-tailed it, said I had enough, and one couldn't join the Senate fast enough. Then he lost 3 by-elections, handing the Liberals a majority. He's polling at nearly 30%. His disapproval ratings are through the basement. There was talk in the papers that fundraising might become an issue now. He's shown no judgment or discernment or ability to pivot. And we are labeling this as success. Blowing a 26-point lead, losing his own seat, and never coming close to 41% in the public opinion polls since, while having lost 6 MPs. I'm just success. Anybody who's poo-pooing on Pierre right now is doing so because they haven't had his level of success, and there have been a lot of things like this over the course of the weekend. You have Élie Cantin-Nantel, journalist, we will say, for The Hub, Canada. And it's sort of like having a fight with another influencer here, with Jasmine Lane. People accusing people of having victim mentality. This Harrison Lohman and Jasmine Lane are having a debate about this. And Élie Cantin-Noël said, rather than continue this disagreement in the comments, why don't you both come on my podcast for a debate? Let's market our own infighting. Élie Cantin-Noël, influencers are here to stay. We have overtaken the media and party campaigns. We are more popular with the next generation. The Liberals, NDP, the U.S. Democrats, and Republicans all have influencers. Yes, but they're not all equal, right? I equate this to the days when techno music was coming into being. Yes. And while there were a couple of good songs at the beginning, there were a whole bunch of bands that came out and gave themselves names like MiG 43 and a whole bunch of stuff. And were coming out and making music. And most of it was crap. Those first techno music compilation CDs, you had one song for 2 Unlimited on it, and the rest was just filler crap. It's like, yeah, influencers, yeah, they are here to stay. There have always been influencers, though. The format in the media and how they interact with the general public have changed, but there have always been influencers. We had the gossip columnists back in the day, right? There have always been influencers, but it's how you ply your trade. If the gossip columnists revealed their sources, they wouldn't be much of a gossip columnist, right? Yes. And then again, stuff like, I wish the red Tory establishment had the same amount of contempt for the morally corrupt government-funded legacy media in Canada as they do for conservative influencers. People put everything on the line every day to advance the conservative movement. Mm-hmm. So they are upset. They are upset that this is happening. And they're rushing to the defense. They're rushing to say things like, we're just doing our job. You can't call us disloyal for just doing our job. with no thought at all to the concept of it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. Michael Solberg, another one. A reminder that it is the literal job of Pierre Poilièvre to oppose the government, to critique it, to question it, to compel it, to answer questions, to find unexplored angles on issues that the government must speak to. That is not an overly partisan act. That is our model of government. You may dislike the way he carries out his duty, which he was elected by millions of Canadians to do, but you're wrong to expect he should be celebrating any kind of soft-hearted or small wins of this government of any kind. That is the partisan in you talking. That is not the role of the official opposition. Great columnist Annie Dufour goes, "You are right in principle, Michael. No doubt about it. But have you considered that not everything should be public? Trump's United States is waging a ruthless economic war against us. Thus, the art of concealing one's hand in negotiation strategy is essential. Let us trust Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War. Quote, let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. Reassure Canadians that there is a plan and give them the broad outlines, of course. But no to the Conservatives' demand that we hand over our written plans moreover to the adversary." We got Shov Majumdar asking that. Because while everything that Michael Solberg says in that first paragraph here, that it's the job of the leader of the opposition to oppose government, to critique it, to question it, to compel it, to answer questions, to find unexplored angles on issues that the government must speak to, the opposition is supposed to do all of that while still being loyal to Canada first and only. And when you are loyal to Canada first and only, then you can actually celebrate a soft-hearted or small win of some kind of the government. You can actually be happy when the government of the day, even though it's not you, has done something good. That's weird. It's not the job. It is not the constitutional function of the opposition to want the country to fail. And if you have people in your party that do want the country to fail, to give them safe harbor. As stated in these articles, it is not your job to form a union with other conservatives in other nations around the world to promote conservatism over your country. It's your job to recognize that conservatives in other countries may not have our best interests at heart, as is the case in the United States. And when that is the case, to stand with your fellow Canadians, not with your fellow global conservatives. And when you start standing with your fellow global conservatives, even the ones that actively want your country harm rather than your fellow Canadians, and you complain about your fellow Canadians painting you as not wrong but evil, as you do the exact same thing. Inherently corrupt, incompetent, stupid, and filling their pockets, helping their buddies. Wanting to bring about the destruction of Canada. Trying to make us believe that Canada is an irretrievably racist country. That's what y'all are doing. That's not the job. So no, we don't like the way that he's going about doing the job. Public opinion surveys are letting it known. Your own MPs in your caucus are letting it be known. They're leaving the party. They can't get away fast enough. But you all want to go out there and come and say, no, Pierre Poilievre got 41%. Everybody that's not on board is just jealous of his success. Little say we're evil. Liberals don't get to define what patriotism is. You're confirming all of it. The problem is internal. Your damn party didn't even do an actual postmortem of why it is you lost. You didn't hire an independent person with credibility in doing this type of work to go out and find out from everybody that participated in the campaign what went well, what didn't go well, what they heard at the door, and deliver an honest assessment to the party, the board, the president, all of that, about what went wrong. This is not a party that looks inside. This is a party that looks for grievance. They just look for grievance. And just like the Americans, who for some reason don't understand why it is that Canada would have retaliated on booze, we didn't do anything wrong because history starts the moment after they attacked us. The Conservatives, the same thing. Why would anybody say that we're disloyal? How could they possibly say that? We're just doing our job. People don't like the way you're doing your job. And instead of taking the critique, you're rushing out trying to defend Pierre, still trying to present him as inevitable, still celebrating 41% like you achieved something. You didn't win, you lost. You lost. Yeah, 41 is a great number. Yeah, but you lost. You drove up conservative vote. Yeah, that's fantastic. But you drove up liberal vote too. To the point of collapsing the NDP. You lost. And since you lost, your boy hasn't done anything that he has needed to do to show that he actually wants to win this. And you have some conservative people within the party who are noticing this and are speaking out because you know what? They're tired of losing. They've lost 4 in a row. But there is no one more blind than those who do not wish to see. And there are still too many people in that party that do not wish to see. And in the midst of all that, we have one more opinion piece proving this from someone who clearly is and has no desire and hasn't had for a long time of being helpful to the leader, and about whom the party is not doing anything. Jamil Jivani, National Post. Because, again, another one of the Post media newspapers that are owned by the Americans who are loyal to Trump, but that want you to believe that this is an actual Canadian publication that is there to serve you. Of course, they published this. Does Mark Carney want to lead the U.S. Democratic Party? Let's just question the Prime Minister's allegiance to the country then. This is the extent of the deep thinking in this party. Quote, it sure looks like Mark Carney is auditioning to be the next leader of the U.S. Democratic Party. As a Canadian member of Parliament who represents working families impacted by U.S. tariffs, I want to know why Carney is more interested in playing American politics than being the Prime Minister of Canada. Says the guy who went to the United States to tap his alleged friendship with J.D. Vance. Prior to his own leader taking a trip to the United States where he had no meetings with anybody of consequence because turns out he's so insular he doesn't actually have a network. Jamil Jivani has more high-level contacts in the Carter administration than the leader of the opposition does. He's been running these rogue missions. And Pierre has done nothing to reel him in. makes him look weak. But while all this is going on, here's the guy taking the right-wing swings that the rabid right wants to see Pierre Poilièvre take, but that he hasn't. Speaking of not saying things and holding your tongue so as to not offend your strategic partner. The latest announced increase in U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods is expected to kick in later this summer, following months of deterioration in Canada-U.S. relations. Carney has contributed to this deterioration by dragging Canada into the middle of American partisanship instead of building the economic and security relationship that he promised Canadian voters in last year's election. See? Again, don't blame the people who've pulled the rug out from under us. Don't blame the people who have shown everybody that their word means nothing. Don't talk about the Americans dragging themselves into the middle of Canadian partisanship. Well, yeah, I guess you couldn't do that because you're the one that's bringing it in, aren't you, Jamil? I mean, you literally went to the White House to tell us that Trump loves us. Just saying. Just before the most recent tariff announcement, Carney made the inexplicable decision of hiring a Democrat operative who previously worked with Hillary Clinton, Michael Bloomberg, blah, 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 to lead the Prime Minister's office as chief operating officer. Anyway, he just goes on like this. There's no point in reading this dribble. The thing that you need to know about Jamil Jivani is that this is a man that's had a problem with every single employer he's ever had. And right now, he has problems with Pierre, clearly. Because he keeps on doing this stuff. It makes Pierre Poilièvre look bad. But this whole thing, does Mark Carney want to lead the U.S. Democratic Party? The guy who's literally trying to bring Turning Point USA into Canada wants you to believe that the Prime Minister of Canada would rather lead the U.S. Democratic Party. Not serious. Now, a solid leader of the opposition who stood with Canadians rather than Americans would politically smack Jivani upside the head for this piece. Ed would turn around and go to a mic and said, I don't know what the hell's going on with my caucus member. Pull a John McCain. I have a lot of political disagreements with Prime Minister Carney, but if there's one thing I have no doubt about is that he is loyal to this country. There's a moment in there for Pierre. But does that moment, if Pierre chooses to use it, lead to fundraising dollars from the pro-MAGA part of the party just shriveling up? Get saucy. Jamil's a danger. He needs to be watched. Yeah, Pierre, watch your back. Because right now it looks like the Prime Minister's coming for you from the front. But trying to create a situation where not only did you lose an MP suddenly on July 7th by having one recruited from your party and sent to the Senate, but as early as August 31st, you may lose the seat. That goes with that. And that could cause the factions of your party that are already questioning. I even heard a couple of predictions that are similar to ours that the Conservative Party of Canada won't be starting next year with Pierre Poilièvre as leader. They're actually in print and in podcasts from conservatives wondering if he makes it to Christmas the way things are going now. If the party loses that seat in Chicoutimi-Lafière, that's certainly going to accelerate that case. So the Prime Minister appears to be coming for Pierre Poilièvre from the front, creating that situation we could actually lose that seat. And you got Jamil Jivani coming from the right flank with a lot of self-promotion and saying of things that do not help the party and that certainly do not help the leader. Hey, Pierre, I've got more contacts in the White House than you do. Hey, Pierre, when I went to the United States, I brought back a message from the president. Where did you go again? Hey, Pierre, people are questioning your party's loyalty. Watch me question the prime minister's loyalty. Ooh, you didn't have it in you to do that move. Maybe you're not as pure as we thought you were. Hmm? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. They're coming for Pierre. Kitsasi, someone will fear Pierre's void, and it's going to be worse than Poilièvre. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Unless the Conservative Party of Canada decides that it is going to learn its lesson, that this populist thing is not going to work, and is going to start looking to someplace outside the benches of the party to see who the next one could be. And will be willing to go broader, and will be willing to tell the people in the party, go, he's not conservative enough, not pure enough, to STFU and go join the PPC if they don't like it. Because so long as they keep on this current wheel of just cheering, trying to convince Canadians that everything in Canada is terrible, cheering for Canada to fail, and putting on the lenses that anything that's bad that happens in Canada, no matter what everybody else is doing, no matter whether or not we have, regardless of what our eyes and ears tell us, is that everything is the fault of just one person. And it's the person, not the person trying to do harm to our country. That it's not a narrative that is going to convince enough people. It's not a narrative that's going to bring and add people to your party. It's a very, very narrow one. Again, that relies on just poisoning and poisoning and poisoning and poisoning the well until some blunders happen, like the bridge one. And other ones do because they all happen in politics, and that enough of them happen that you can turn around and see, I was right all along. I predicted this. That appears to be the goal. Here. Kit Linda reporting that Jordan Carroll takes gold for Canada on the pommel horse. Well, there you go. Hello. Canada is slaying at gymnastics lately. We definitely are. So there you go, kids and cubs. That's this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring. Word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. If you would like to help us in other ways, kits and cubs, one of the ways that you can do that is by scanning this QR code, which brings you to our YouTube page if you're not there already, where you can go there and click our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Click on our notification bell and select all, so that you can receive word of when it is that we have some new content up there for you. And as well, if you are watching this not live on your cell phone or tablet, fewer than 7 days after the original live broadcast, if you can swipe left on the comment section and leave us some hype points, because that helps smaller channels like ourselves gain more visibility on the platform, we would be very grateful. Thank you very much. If you would like to help us financially, because we do incur some costs to bring this show, if you want to accelerate us leaving Restream to go to StreamYard, we would be happy to receive your help. I always point at the wrong spot right there. By scanning that QR code, we would be very grateful. It brings you to our coffee page, which is our tip jar, or as we call it, the Emergency Hydration Fund, where you can buy your favorite beaver a cup of hot chocolate, or your favorite grizzly, a mug of dark coffee to say, "Atta Beaver and Atta Grizzly, you did some good work today." And if there happens to be a little extra in your enthusiastic expression of encouragement for the work that we do, then we put it back into the show and to, our streaming platforms, internet fees. A couple of years ago, we upgraded our computers, stuff like that, in order to bring you the best possible show that we can. So thank you for all of your support. And if you just think that I'm looking particularly cute today and want to send me money, that's good too. It doesn't have to be for my performance. I'm not picky. I'm not picky. Uh, I also take pity money. But hey, that QR code will bring you there. And it is, you can find our tip jar at ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. We have it set up so that you can make a one-time or recurring donation that you could stop at any time. It doesn't lock you in. It's just for convenience. And we appreciate all that you do for us. We get 95 to 97% of your tips when you donate through coffee. We also have stickers, super chats, and membership on our YouTube page, and we get about 70% of your donations there. And of course, if you're doing the Buy Canadian thing and avoiding the USCE Tech Bros kits and cubs, well, have we got a deal for you. If you send us an email and a direct bank transfer to truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, we get 100% of your donation. There are no service fees. It's Canadian bank to Canadian bank, and the USC Tech Bros don't get a cent, which is a good thing. So anyway, you choose to donate. We really appreciate it, and we thank you so much for keeping us going 6 years. And we ain't stopping. This party don't stop. Mm-mm. All right, kids and cubs. Let's see. Because democracy is something that you do, we have a couple of things for you, of course. We have some petitions for you. The first one, and this one is closing soon in just 3 days, I think it is, July 30th, is, yep, at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Calls upon the House of Commons to stop funding Stornoway as a residence for the leader of the official opposition. And we have that for you right here in the chat. Boom. There you go. You can click on that if you want to go there. And this petition, as we are coming to the close, has 27,686 signatures on it. The other one is by that band in Saskatchewan that we told you about, who wants to try to save Hockey Night in Canada as some type of tradition in Canadian culture and in Canadian society, whether it be through CBC airing a PWHL game or Sportsnet coming to a deal with CBC for an NHL game or covering some junior hockey game. All of that, whatever it is, or university hockey game, but that there is a rendezvous so that we keep that tradition going. So we have it here, and that is at www.change.org/p/save hyphen hockey hyphen night hyphen in hyphen Canada question mark, and then signed equal true. That's a long one. But there you go. Or you just go to Change.org and look for Save Hockey Night in Canada as the as the thing, and you will be able to find it. And it's the Blue Beach Band, BLU, Blue Beach Band, which is the petition starter, describe themselves as hyper Canadian indie rock band from Regina, Saskatchewan. So thank you for your service to the country here, trying to save some Hockey Night in Canada. So those are the two petitions. Of course, we have the Manitoba flood appeal from the Canadian Red Cross. If you would like to help our brothers and sisters there, every dollar is matched by the Manitoba government. So if you donate $1, $2 goes to our brothers and sisters in the province. And you can donate by going to the website at give.redcross.ca/page/26MBFLA for Manitoba flood appeal. That's give.redcross.ca/page/26MBFLA. And if you would like to donate instead by phone or by email, you can do that by contacting the Red Cross at 1-800-418-1111. That's 1-800-418-1111. Or by sending an email to wecare@redcross.ca. That's wecare@redcross.ca. So if you have the opportunity to help our brothers and sisters in Manitoba, that would be greatly appreciated. And of course, now that we have 3 by-elections called Kits and Cubs in Chicoutimi, Le Fjord, in what are the other ones? North Vancouver, Capilano, and Beaches, East York. Well, it's time for you, Kits and Cubs, if you happen to be in those ridings, to find out more about your candidates and maybe volunteer to help some out, do some canvassing, some phone banking, stuff of the like. And, or, as I always recommend that everybody should do at least once in their life, why not let Elections Canada know that you are available to work at a polling station, either advanced polling or the days of the by-elections. And that could be very helpful. Again, it's a wonderful experience that everybody should have at least once in their lifetime. I've done it once, and it is it just really makes you feel good inside that you're helping the democratic process take place, particularly when you see people come to the counter and they're all concerned because they really, really want to vote, but they're not sure they have the right idea and stuff like that. And you are able to help them do that, and how grateful they are. And it's just, like I said, it gives you faith in people, and it makes you feel really good about your country. So that is something that I definitely suggest that you should try here. And then we have Kit Linda going, PWHL has 12 teams now. Shouldn't be any problem filling a Hockey Night in Canada schedule. Indeed. Skit Saucy, PWA, and youth games. Men can take a back seat for a minute until they get their shit together. Indeed. All right. Words of wisdom, Kits and Cubs. If you have the opportunity to, at some point in the coming days or weeks, connect with nature. People who have a garden often know this. Just digging your hands in the dirt a little bit can make a day better. We went camping, and that was absolutely wonderful. So if you have anything like that, going to the cottage, do a little gardening. Maybe if you don't have too much gardening to do. I don't know. Like this, maybe you have a balcony and you have some planters, maybe a new plant or something. But a forest walk, right? Just take some time to connect with nature. It's good for the soul every now and then. Those are my words of wisdom. It can be a tough world out there, Kits and Cubs. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, can I have a little audience participation on the count of 3? Can I hear you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3? Let me hear it. Ooh, yeah, that is the good stuff. That is the good stuff. And since you asked so nicely, here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo for you. We'll be back with some Canadians who make us proud. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, let's talk about some Canadians who make us proud. Edition, here we go. It says here that nearly 150 athletes will compete across 9 sports for Canada at the Glasgow 2026 Commonwealth Games. This year's team includes Olympic and world champions and reigning Commonwealth gold medalists as Canada aims to maintain their spot as one of the top teams at the Commonwealth Games. And so far, we have some medals, and we had a 5 medal day, I believe it was yesterday. But picking up bronze medals for Canada, Mary Jibb winning our first medal of the Games, bronze in the women's 200-meter individual medley SM10 category at the Commonwealth Games. Parasport or adapted sport takes place side by side with able-bodied sport. So our first medal came from our para athletes. We had Jack Gill win a bronze medal in the men's 100-meter butterfly S10 category in swimming, and Leah Monica Fontaine in artistic gymnastics picking up a surprise bronze for Canada in the women's individual all-around. Silver medalists, we have Kylie Mass picking up her 10th Commonwealth Games medal in her career, and I believe that makes her the most decorated female athlete at the Commonwealth Games, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll double check that when I have the chance here. But yes, let's see. Oh, sorry, most decorated female Canadian swimmers in the event's history. So, particularly for swimming here. So that is big and happened in the women's 100-meter backstroke. Felix Dolci in artistic gymnastics took the silver in the individual men's all around. And Ellie Black, Gabrielle Black, Leah Monica Fontaine, Elisa Guerrier Calixte, and Leah Reddick as the women's artistic gymnastics team took the silver medal in the team competition. And for gold medals, we have Ellie Black, as we mentioned, became the first person in the Commonwealth, male or female, to win 2 consecutive gold medals in the all around. So it picks up there in the women's individual all around. Joss Liendo picked up a gold in the men's 100-meter butterfly and finished 4th in another event just off the podium. And Jordan Carroll, René Cournoyer, Felix Dolce, William Aymar, and Ethan Aikida won gold in the gymnastics team for the men event. And we just had Jordan Carroll, as we mentioned on the show, pick up another bronze today on the pommel horse in the individual apparatus finals at the Commonwealth Games. So a lot to be proud of here. And the fun keeps going for a couple of days yet. According to a swimming.ca, let's just see what else do we have here. Taking a look here. Nope, no additional information here for us. So there you go, kids and cubs. We have just here that there are 12 Olympic program and 12 Paralympic program athletes at the Commonwealth Games in swimming here. And Canadian swimmers captured 19 medals at the 2022 Commonwealth Games in total. And right now, we are standing at 10, I believe. And I believe on the medals, whoops, sorry. I need the medal table. Thank you very much. There we go. Canada with, there have been more. There have been more medals. I have missed a few, it seems here, because according to the medal table, we have 5 gold. So there have been 2 more. 1, 4 silver, and 4 bronze. So 2 more gold and 1 more silver at some point that I do not know who picked them up for Team Canada. But there you go. Just some good news from our athletes all around. And a very quick look here to see if I can see who else has picked up a medal. Um, no. Well, one of the good stories here, track and field starts today too, and we have a Damian Warner, our decathlete par excellence, who's had a run of injuries over the past while that's kept him out of some major competition, including the Olympics, or just bad luck as well. And he's making his return to the Commonwealth Games. He's hoping to pick up a win there for him. And I think he is committed to competing through to the Olympics. Um, he's 36 now, so definitely showing that age is not a number in sports. But yeah, 2 years ago at the Olympics wasn't an injury. He had failed to get over the bar on all three attempts at the pole vault, and was a shocking moment because he was favored to win. And then he had suffered an Achilles injury afterwards that forced him out of the World Championships in Tokyo. So yeah, it's a couple of years of unfortunate events, and probably very much looking for his opportunity to um, not if not necessarily get back on the horse, but just an opportunity to be competing at a high level and being able to put out his actual best. So that's going to be he's going to be one to watch, and I can't wait to see how his journey goes on that one. All right, kids and cubs, have had no luck finding out who the other medal winners are for Canada today at the Commonwealth Games. So I will not be able to bring that news to you, but I will have it for you tomorrow. So until then, everyone, please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. Amour et bisous. And we will see you very, very, very soon. All right. Bye, everyone. And there's the button. I needed a little while to look for it, but I got it now.